Today I want to talk about letting God interrupt our lives, because life's interruptions can be God's opportunities. Many years ago, I read a very special little book that changed my thinking in a significant way. The author of the book was Larry Jones, the founder of Feed the Children, which was hosted and started in Oklahoma City. Larry was on his way to preach a crusade meeting in Port-au-Prince, Haiti, and he got interrupted. So let me quickly read how his story got started from his words. In January 1979, I was speaking at a church in Port-au-Prince, Haiti, the poverty capital of the world. It was hot and sticky, about 95 degrees and 95% humidity. One night, a little boy named Jerry, whom I'd met earlier in the week, emerged from the shadows of the street as I approached my hotel. Jerry stuck out his skinny little arm in my direction. "Lori," he said, mispronouncing my name, "can you spare a nickel?" "Sure, Jerry, what for?" "So I can go to that store over there and buy a roll," Jerry replied. "I haven't eaten all day." His words rattled around in my head like rocks in a hubcap. I just preached a sermon on the love and generosity of God. How could I not acknowledge the child's need? I willingly pressed money into Jerry's hand, and off he went, running full speed toward the store. But then the little guy must have been a budding marketeer, because he stopped abruptly in his tracks, turned around, and came back to tug at my heartstrings. "Laurie," he asked again, "do you also got 3 cents? When I inquired what he needed that for, he smiled and replied, "Well, for 3 cents, that store will break open the roll and put butter on both sides." Of course, I gave Jerry the coins, and he started off again. But this time, I stopped the youngster. "How much for a Coke, Jerry?" "You got to wash it down." A drink cost 12 cents. Jerry's eyes were brightening with the hope as he spoke. I laid that amount in his small, outreached hand. A mere 20 cents bought Jerry a meal that day. Not a nutritious meal, but a meal nevertheless. I later learned that that bread, butter, and drink comprised Jerry's only meal that day. And that was the beginning of Feed the Children. I think we would all agree that with COVID-19, our lives have been interrupted in so many ways. But even in the absence of COVID-19, I think many times we get so busy for God in the church that we forget what really matters to the heart of God. As we look back of our life and see how interruptions were opportunities, sometimes it saddens us because we miss opportunities. George Gardner once said, "Instead of studying the steps of Jesus, I would like to see what I could learn of the stops of Jesus." Several years ago, our church built a Habitat for Humanity house for a family with 4 children. I was coordinating the project, so twice, sometimes 3 times a day, I would take the same path, same street to and from the house. It was only a few blocks from the church. On this one morning, as I traveled to the house, I was stopped by the train. I really needed to meet roofers at the house, but I was stuck. The traffic line was so long, and it just so happened I was stopped by the police station. But I was waiting with no way to move. I glanced over to the police station and saw something I had not noticed before that day. There were what seemed to be hundreds of bicycles, bikes that have been collected all over Norman. Some donated, some abandoned, some stolen. Hundreds of bicycles. So later that day, I contacted the chief of police because we had been talking about getting the Habitat family bicycles. I contacted the chief and told him that I'd be interested in some bicycles. And he said, normally we keep those in a designated area and then we sell them at an auction. He said it would be difficult to change that procedure, plus all the red tape with the city, it would just be too difficult. He said he would check, but not to get my hopes up, but my hopes were already up. 2 weeks later, after the conversation with the chief and my life being interrupted by the train, a young man came to my office. He needed some items for his family, including food. He explained to me he had a new baby. He worked a job and a half, but not enough income to sustain his family. Other than food and toiletries, I asked him, what could I do to help? Then it hit me. He had told me he had no vehicle and that he was walking to both his jobs. I asked him if a bike would help him. In that moment, tears started to run down his cheeks. So I called the chief of police, explained that I needed just one bike, one in really good shape. Once again, the chief of police reminded me that we did not have a bike program yet, but finally he gave in and told me to bring the young man to him. When we arrived, the chief had a great bike, a new bike, ready for my new friend. And my new friend was so excited. He hugged me, he hugged the chief, and he got on his bike and he rode away. Then the chief turned to me and said, okay, we have a city council meeting in 2 weeks. Bring your proposal and we'll see what we can do. So 2 weeks later, I went before the city council with the Bikes and Bibles program proposal. It was approved, and the next day we had a trailer full of bikes, bringing them to the church. I did not realize at the time what an opportunity God had given just by me being stopped by the train. Now, 17 years later, our church is still in the bike ministry. It continues on with faithful volunteers and our own little bike shop. And we watch people, even today, get on their bikes, smile, and ride away. God has used so many interruptions many times in my life to get my attention and to direct me along the right road. And each time I learned a little bit more about him and what he expected me to do in his name. I know there have been so many opportunities missed. There are times when we are so busy that if God himself wanted to have an appointment with us, it would take 3 weeks to fit him into our schedule. Jesus was always being interrupted. It was truly what he wanted to do. If we truly want to be like Jesus, we must let our lives be interrupted. COVID-19 has done that just for us, interrupted us, but at the same time provides so many opportunities around us. Have you ever thought what would happen if your church closed? Would it make a difference to this community? Well, it did close. Are we still making a difference? I think so. Can we do more? Absolutely. A friend of mine once told me that he put a do not disturb sign on his heart and it made no difference to anyone. Then one day his life was changed because he was interrupted. And he removed the do not disturb sign and he realized it did make a difference to a lot of people, but most of all to him, because at that point he was able to give himself away to others because God gave him opportunities. God provided. Edward Hale wrote, I am only one, but I am still one. I cannot do everything, but I can still do something. And because I cannot do everything, I will not refuse the something I can do. So let me encourage you today to let your life's interruptions become God's opportunities. Not everyone will start a national and international food program for children, but everyone can do something. So my encouragement to you today is to look for your opportunity and do something.